We'll go ahead and get started now with our second conversation. Thank you all again for coming today. And just as a reminder, if you have questions that you'd like to direct to the panel as we go along, you can use Twitter to send the questions using the hashtag USMXS. We had a number of questions in the first panel, and actually were able to address many of them, so please take advantage of that. I'll start with our introductions on our second panel to your right, and the audience's right, and work the way around. First, we have our host for today, Representative Beto O'Rourke from the 16th Congressional District of Texas. Next to him, next to him is Representative William Hurd from the 23rd Congressional District of Texas. And then in the center, we're very pleased today to have R. Gil Kurlikowski, who's the Commissioner of the United States Customs and Border Protection. And then we have El Paso's own Governor Susana Martinez. And finally, joining us today from the state of Chihuahua is Senator Lilia Merodio. In moderating this panel, we're very fortunate today to have Christopher Wilson, who's the Deputy Director of the Mexico Institute for the Wilson Center. And Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for attending once again, for being here for this great event. We have an incredible group of people before us that we get to speak with today. We're going to talk about now, I mean, we've already spoken, and we sort of closed the last panel talking a little bit about the vision for the region, a vision for the border. I think what clearly came through for me in that panel was that this region sees itself as a single integrated whole, that El Paso and Ciudad Juarez and New Mexico are part of one whole, one economy, one community that's working together. For that to be possible, and for there to be development and advancement within that context, we obviously need a border that functions very well. It has to be a very high-performing border. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. What is the ideal border? We're going to envision it a little bit more and try to talk about how it is that you get from here to there. So I'm going to jump right in, not spend too much of my time introducing things, because I think we have the people that can explain it all for us right before our eyes. And I'm going to start with our host today, Congressman Beto O'Rourke, and ask you to give us a little bit of that framework. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of U.S.-Mexico trade, the importance of having a border that functions. What does that mean for El Paso and the region, and what does it mean for the United States as a whole? It's something that I know you've done a lot, because in Washington, really from day one, Congressman O'Rourke came to Washington and started being an advocate for the border region, started explaining to other members of Congress why it is that this mattered to them. And so maybe you can help us all see, to start this panel out, that bigger picture.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. The numbers help to tell the story. We think about just the El Paso sector that we're in, and the wonderful men and women of Customs and Border Protection who work under Commissioner Gil Kurlikowski facilitate about $90 billion in U.S.-Mexico trade through this sector, which includes southern New Mexico, includes West Texas. And as we heard from the Charge d'Affaires earlier, those imports that are coming in from Mexico have 40% U.S. component parts. So imports from Mexico are connected to jobs, not just in El Paso, but they're connected to jobs in Detroit, Michigan, in Indiana, in Nashville, Tennessee, all over the country. And it's been part of our mission, and I'm joined by Will Hurd in doing this now, in sharing that with our colleagues, that the border matters not just because it's important to us, which it certainly is, but it is important to you, those representatives who are looking after the jobs on the factory floors in their districts. We know that when we have slowdowns at the border, it is to incredible cost to the U.S. economy. Every minute of additional delay at our ports of entry costs the U.S. economy about $166 million. That's just for every additional minute. And we've got some challenges in measuring that wait time, in expediting those waits for trade, and that's all connected to more economic growth, further development, and jobs in our communities, and that's what we're all here to do. But the numbers only begin to tell part of the story. We know in the El Paso sector last year, 30 million people crossed through our ports of entry, which to me is just a staggering number. But something that Senator Cuevas said on the last panel really hit home with me, which is it's important for us to look at trade and to facilitate the movement of and the flow of people who have their documents and trade that's connected to markets and jobs in this country. But it's also really important to talk about the human dimension of this and the need to ensure that each and every single one of us, regardless of our nationality, regardless of our status, regardless of where we live, is treated with dignity and respect. And at a time that you have record low northbound crossing attempts, these are for undocumented immigrants, even with the increase in migrants and asylum seekers coming from Central America, you have some of the highest levels of migrant deaths along the border. And so when I think about a healthy border, I think about facilitating trade. I think about more jobs. I think about less hassle when we're crossing these ports of entry. But I also think about the human dimension of this. How do we make sure that we are healthy beyond the economic metrics and that we're treating everybody with dignity and respect, and no one has to lose their life to connect with family or a job or make the most out of this binational region?
Yeah, thanks very much. So yeah, so we have 6 million jobs connected to U.S.-Mexico trade at the national level. But if we could, Governor Martinez, help me focus in a little bit on the region. And I turn to you there. Actually, first of all, thank you for being here with us today. You could have just as easily been in Cleveland, Ohio for a Fox News debate tonight. But instead, you decided to be with us today. Maybe you'll join for a vice presidential debate at some point. I don't know. But that's not a question. You don't have to answer it. My question for you. My question for you is to focus us in on the region, and I ask you to do it especially because New Mexico is one of the states that has had some of the biggest trade growth with Mexico, has really developed in recent years a much deeper relationship. How did you do it? What have you accomplished? How did you do it? And should we be expecting more of that in the future? Because if we do expect more and more connections and trade, then we need more and more capacity at our border, obviously. So it's very important in that sense as well.
Yes, and I think it's extremely important in order to grow our economy. Oh, I'm sorry. This is working? Okay. I think it's extremely important to build our economy on both sides of the border. And you have to do that by creating relationships. Relationships between the leadership, local, state levels, along with the local and state leadership of the states in Mexico. And the very first thing that we did, and keep in mind, my background is a prosecutor for 25 years on the border. And as a prosecutor on the border, I had a very different focus. But when I became governor, the focus had to change because I became the governor of all of the people of New Mexico. And to improve the opportunities for the people of New Mexico was extremely important. And that included creating relationships with people in Mexico. And what they've done is they have invested $800 million in their infrastructure. They are very serious in building their infrastructure to be able to bring commerce through the Santa Teresa port of entry. And we have also invested in our infrastructure. Without the infrastructure, businesses cannot see it as a viable place to bring their business or for housing development, to come and build homes for the workers that are coming to the companies. When we first started, Santa Teresa was a very sleepy little town. Not a whole lot of things were happening. And the first thing we did is we removed the tax on locomotive fuel. And I'm sorry, Texas, we took Union Pacific and brought it over to Santa Teresa. But because you were landlocked, and we were not landlocked. And that allowed us to have a Union Pacific hub, which then allowed us to have that port of entry that allowed for importing and exporting of all kinds of items. I mean, we are exporting all over South and North America. We are ranked #1, according to CNBC, of we are number one in the nation, in the United States, in export growth. And this was from something that we had an industrial park that there was nothing there. I was at the ribbon cutting for the bypass to go around the city of Chihuahua with President Peña Nieto, as well as with the Governor Cesar Duarte, to be able to celebrate that we are both investing, not just one side, but both investing in the ability to move commerce back and forth between the Americas. And there will be jobs on both sides of our borders. If you don't develop those relationships, you can't get beyond that and start to say, I am committed in investing in water and wastewater treatment facilities, in roadways, in railroad, in how do we move our goods, how do we employ people. Ernst & Young for manufacturing on the American side. We were at the bottom for manufacturing in the country. We are now the best in the West of the United States because of what we've done in the legislature. And it takes the legislature. We have reduced the ability, we are giving tax credits to people who bring their businesses to the border, incentivizing them to come and bring their business to the border. We have done a 12-mile zone, heavy cargo zone, so that people who are coming from Mexico and have very heavy cargo don't have to unload part of their cargo before they cross over to the United States. We also have the port of entry in the inspection area, a state-of-the-art inspection area that uses technology, enables the movement of inspecting the cargo so it's safe to cross over. And it is done very quickly because we know that time is money, and the faster that cargo is onto a train or onto a roadway, the faster it moves to its location, and that company is not losing any money. And so we have received a lot of accolades or many accolades from Ernst & Young as well, who has studied the export growth. We have become the business friendly in New Mexico from 37 to 24 in just 1 year. But that's because of the regulations that we put in place, the laws that have changed, and how we have rolled out that red carpet to businesses from all over the country and all over the world, because we also have businesses from other parts of the world that have come to New Mexico and say, we are open for business and we are friendly. One last point. It used to be New Hampshire who used to export more to Mexico than New Mexico. And it takes us 20 minutes, 30 minutes to get to a maquiladora to provide the products or whatever is necessary. Instead, it was coming from New Hampshire. Yeah. That makes no sense.
So when you have governors like this, congressmen like these that are with us, and senators who are rolling out the red carpet to attract new businesses, create more jobs in the region, boost trade, Commissioner Kurlikowski, that makes your job perhaps a little bit more difficult because you have more traffic all the time at our ports of entry, more activity. And we all know, as we talked about a little bit in the previous panel, that we're in a post-9/11 context, that security is also part of the game, that security is also important at the border. How is it that you are able to meet that? CBP has a dual mission in that sense, to both facilitate trade and to protect our nation. How do you do it? How do you, what are the tools, what are the concepts in play so that it's not sort of a zero-sum game, I guess?